And that is one of my favorite songs from the new virtual hymnal that we have. And I just wanted to say that that quote is so famous that Martin Luther King spoke, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." And actually that quote came from one of our Unitarian forebears, Theodore Parker, who was an abolitionist minister in Boston. Is the mic on?
Got it down.
Okay. No, this isn't it. It's here. Okay, maybe it's better. Thank you. Theodore Parker used to keep a gun in his desk at the church because he was protecting folks hiding out from the Fugitive Slave Act. So anyway, it's a great line. I think it actually came through someone else before it got to Martin Luther King Jr., who used it well. So I have spent the last 3 days in Denver at the One Colorado Power Building Summit. One Colorado is one of the statewide organizations working to advance equality for LGBTQAI+ people. Who knows about One Colorado? A couple of you? Good. They're focused right now, fully focused on defeating the 2 anti-trans ballot measures. Yeah. There was this moment on the first day when one of the facilitators asked, who in the room, this is your first real step into activism? Okay, and there were actually more people that raised their hand than I expected. And they were fully applauded. Then the facilitator asks, everyone who's been an activist for more than a year, stand up. So of course, most of the room stands up. And then, who's been an activist for more than 5 years? Everyone else sit down. And then who's been an activist for more than 10 years? Keep standing. And he just went up, 15 years, 20 years. And at 45 years, if you've been an activist for more than 45 years, it was me and another woman in the room. And it was kind of a tender moment for me realizing that thread. 51 years ago, 1975, I was attending Eastfield Community College in a suburb of Dallas, and that year, New York City almost went bankrupt. It was a big deal. So to my history professor, I suggested a forum so that we could understand the New York City financial situation better. And she looked at me, Jackie looked at me, and she was like seeing me. She said, Ruth, you could be an activist. And I'm like, that's right, I could be. But then I realized it was actually even earlier. It was 1971. I was 13 years old in Punta Gorda, Florida, 8th grade, and it snowed that winter. Actually, it was really cold. And we lived 1.9 miles from the school, so we didn't get picked up by the school bus. Our neighbor kids got picked up. So we were walking, so my sister and I wore pants that day, even though it was against the dress code for girls to wear pants. And we were in 2 days of in-school suspension. We just had to sit outside the principal's office. But they changed that dress code. So, I learned that. Of course, it was right after the 60s, when I was so young. But it's kind of in my bones, activism. I suspect there are many people in this room who would still have been standing at 45 years of activism, 50 years of activism. Faithful actions. After 7 years of active ministry, I took a year of self-funded sabbatical. Like I said, I live up in Golden in the church year 23-24. Then the next year, I consider myself semi-retired. And then I'm thinking, well, maybe I am retired now, right? I'm on Social Security, I'm on Medicare. But then, along with your minister, the Reverend Ron Fairs, I answered the call to clergy across the nation in January of this year to Minneapolis. 2 weeks after Renee Good was murdered by ICE agents. So citywide strike, days of action, days of organizing, 18 below temperatures. Really intense. Those folks are tough. And then most of us were still there Saturday morning when Alex Preddy was murdered by ICE agents. So I cannot be retired right now. I cannot be retired. I have more work to do. We all have something to do to meet this moment, and you all know that. So here's the Merriam-Webster definition of fascism. Fascism is a populist political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual, that is associated with a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, and that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forcible suppression of opposition. At the core of fascism is loyalty to tribe, ethnic identity, religion, tradition, or nation. So we are not fully there, right? We know this. We're not fully there in a fascist state, but it is where they want us to be. Those thieves that are running this government and the billionaires that are funding them. Now, I actually came back from Minneapolis cautiously optimistic. What I saw on the ground there, the extremely local organizing, street by street, the mutual aid, the neighbors caring for neighbors that they didn't know. So I do feel cautiously optimistic that we can stem the tide in this country, stem the tide of authoritarianism and aspirations to fascism. I don't want to go back to where we were 10 or 15 years ago. I want to see us build into something better that we're experiencing each day. And Minneapolis has that now. They have that in their bones, the experience of that very local mutual aid. So I came back, committed to organizing us, Unitarian Universalists, because we've always been involved in service to the wider world, right? We do a lot in the public square. But here in Colorado, we're not cohesive about working together as Unitarian Universalists. I believe we can become more powerful and that we are yearning to be more connected to each other, congregation to congregation, as well as isolated UUs who don't live where a congregation is, sometimes belonging to the Church of the Larger Fellowship, which is our global, virtual congregation. So there is a coalition of UU state action networks. Almost half of our states have these justice ministries now. And we're working hard here in Colorado, organizing one. We'd actually love to see you join us. UU Colorado Action Network. Fortified by the experience and the wisdom of the other states who have already been doing this work, some of them for decades, and some of them, like us, just emerging now. We're actually hopeful to have our first statewide convening right here at All Souls on Saturday, October 3rd. This would be an all-day solidarity summit using the toolkit from Side with Love and UU the Vote. We actually need a few more people to be on that Solidarity Summit planning team in order to have the capacity to pull it off. So thank you to the All Souls Board for approving this possibility. Thank you to Ben Wallace, who's not here this morning, but has agreed to be on the Solidarity Summit building team for UU Can. Thank you to Sandra Collins, who I'm not sure is in the room today, haven't met her yet, but who's organizing a shorter summit the week before here, focused on all the ballot initiatives, collaborating with the League of Women Voters and the Association of University Women, on Sunday afternoon, September 27th. So that would be the week before the UU Can All-Day Summit. And you know, and I know, we all have so many calls on our attention, our time, our pocketbooks, our email inboxes, like, oh my God, email. So we're not looking to duplicate anything. Colorado has very many solid immigrant rights, companioning solidarity organizations, and we want to partner with them. One Colorado and Rocky Mountain Equality are the two statewide organizations focused on rights for queer folk. We want to partner with them. Inside Out's Youth Services right here in Colorado is one of those. So we want to join our community partners and show up together as Unitarian Universalists from all around the state. And sometimes we can help move that needle. right? We are a small faith, but we're a mighty faith. We always have been. So what we will be focusing on at the Solidarity Summit is just a few of the ballot initiatives. And as I said, I've spent the last 3 days with One Colorado in their work to defeat these two awful anti-trans ballot measures with language right out of the Heritage Foundation, right out of Project 2025, targeting the most vulnerable among us, trans youth. So the first measure is about transgender students and their school sports. This measure says that transgender students must play on the sports team that match their biological sex identified at birth, not the gender in which they live every day in their lives. This measure would apply to students from kindergarten all the way through college, a one-size-fits-all situation. So who here is trans or has a transgender person in their family? Good number of you. And if not, then do you know a transgender person? Yes, many of you. If this measure passes, how do you think a child's gender or sex would be determined? It's horrifying to think about that. So it's not clear in the language of the measure how this will be determined, but many of us are concerned about young children, 5 years old, 6 years old, kindergarten, first grade, having to prove what genitalia they are walking around with. Many of us are concerned about girls and young women who are hyper-scrutinized because perhaps they're too tall, too muscular, too perceived as too masculine, gender policing in a really despicable way. Many of us believe that parents and local school districts are better suited to these decisions rather than it being forced on them statewide. The second measure is a medical ban, and it would ban healthcare professionals in Colorado from providing certain medical procedures, including gender-affirming surgery for minors, even when their families and doctors believe this is in their best interest. I met a father in Denver, and he believes that the gender-affirming care that his daughter received actually saved her life. He and his wife did not know how it was going to go, and they believe that their daughter is alive today because of the gender-affirming care that this state measure would ban. Many people have not thought through the unintended consequences of how this ban would affect youth that are not transgender. I learned that the high majority of gender-affirming surgeries for minors are actually performed on boys with gynecomastia, which is enlarged breasts. So that is a gender-affirming surgery for those boys, and that would be banned by this measure. So as you walk these days through towards this November election, in the many opportunities you will have to talk about people, to talk with people about ballot initiatives. And people are kind of afraid to talk about transgender issues. And there's a gap in perception. We think everybody's against it, but actually the majority of people support transgender folks not being discriminated against and getting the care that they need. So, a question you might ask someone is, who do you think should be responsible for medical decisions for a person under 18 years of age? People might be worried about a non-issue repeatedly brought up by the right-wing organizations, the originators of this ballot measure. Perhaps this young person will regret their decision, right, regarding this gender-affirming care. First off, the National Institute of Health says that less than 1% of trans people regret medical transition. And the other thing is, for people who have had knee surgery, 15 to 30% of them regret that decision. Right? So if the vote were held today, those two measures would pass. It's close. It would probably pass 51 to 49% if it was held today. But many, many people who support LGB rights but are confused about the trans rights can be moved with education and compassionate conversations. I believe the political folks when they say that if we change the hearts of 12 to 15,000 voters in the state of Colorado, we will win. So there's work to do on this. So we are made for these times, you and I. We are. We are answering the call, as Ben said, for joy and resilience and love. And love is at the center of our Unitarian Universalist values. Nicole Presley is the National Organizing Strategy Director of Side with Love. And she presented a few months ago to this coalition, this national coalition of UU state action networks. Let me first say that the world of politicians and campaigns and elections, I really don't like them. So often, I do not, because there's too much of a glamour around power and attachment to power and this ungodly effect of money in our election system, in our democracy. But Nicole Presley started her talk with, beloveds, there is so much more to saving democracy than elections and campaigns. That was music to my ears. And part of that is the mutual aid work that we are all learning is so important and so foundational to saving democracy. She also addressed sustainability, and I'm going to repeat her words here. Whatever capacity you think you have between now and November, you have less capacity than you think. So keep that in mind. Take that into account. We have to be rid of this incessant urgency that drives too many of us to burn out. If we think it all rides just on our shoulders alone, we have to engage deeply in care and community care, like we do in congregations, care of ourselves and care of others. And this was also music to my ears to hear from her. So in the stream of joy and love, I want to share words from a dear friend and trans colleague, the Reverend Julian Jaimea Soto, another Unitarian Universalist minister, from their book of poetry, Spilling the Light. This poem is titled, Dear Trans, Non-Binary, Genderqueer, and Gender-Expansive Friends and Kin, and those of us whose gender is survival. You are not hard to love and respect. Your existence is a blessing. Your pronouns are not a burden or a trial. They're part of your name, only shorter. Some of our kin use only their names, where pronouns would be, the names they are called. Remember that someone getting them wrong is not a poor reflection on you. It is not your fault. Your body really and truly belongs to you, no one else. The stories of your body, the names of your body's parts, your body's privacy, the sum of your body's glory. It is not okay for anyone to press their story of you back to the beginning of our liberation. We will find the people ready to be on the Freedom for People way. We will go on. No one can rename you other. It cannot stick. As you offer the gift of being and saying who you are. Mostly, though, your stories belong to you. Your joy and complexity are beautiful, however you may choose to tell it or not to tell it. Some folks, cis, may take their liberty for an unholy license, but you are beloved. Please keep to our shared tasks of healing, of getting free. So, dear ones, all souls, I appreciate being here with you. I know that you do so much, and we are made for these times right now, and we have to build sustainability into our lives, doing what we love, what makes us come alive. Please do think about this new UU Colorado Justice Action Ministry. You can. Think about whether you might have the capacity over the next 12 weeks to help organize its first statewide convening here. It would be good to have 2 folks from All Souls on that planning team. We need a few more folks by July 25th. That's the date where we determine, do we have 7 solid people on the planning team? And then that means we have the capacity to do it. There's a sign-up form back by Rachel. I brought my computer. And really, that's for interest in the organization, not just for a leadership role, but interest in being connected statewide to the justice work of Unitarian Universalists here in Colorado. So let us take upon ourselves this sacred task with love at the center and our shared tasks of healing and of getting free. And as Ben said, let us take a gamble that love does exist, and let us do these loving acts. Thank you.